So, welcome on another episode, or maybe the first episode of Democracy Innovators Podcast. And our guest of today, that is not just a guest, is Carlo Michaelis. Is it right, the pronunciation?
It's, I would say, close. Close enough.
And so, which one is the right one?
Michaelis would be the right one.
Okay. And actually, my name is Alessandro Oppo. And and this is the first episode of something that it's around 1 year that we were discussing about this podcast, right?
Yeah, so actually, I think 1 year ago we met somehow, and there was this idea around a little bit, but it became more concrete, I think, end of November last year or at beginning of December, somewhat around this time, I think.
And I thought why I wanted to do a podcast about, civic tech, political tech, these kind of things. And I think that is interesting for me to talk about these kind of topics. But I also thought that many times, and this is something we also talked about, that sometimes you, like in the real world, you talk about governance, you talk about technology, and people look at you as if you are crazy. And I also thought, am I crazy?
Yeah, right. It's a feeling that I know very well, but I think there's maybe one short story I can tell, because it was I think very important for like why I'm also doing it now. Is like when I was in school, I think it was 7th or 8th grade or so. There was a teacher in politics. I think it was the first grade where we had politics as a subject, and he was like introducing or trying to like explain a little bit why, or like motivate why we have the democracy we have. And he was like explaining like, so just assume like you that we have a society and you want to take decisions. It was somehow framed already in a democratic setting. But the question was, if we want to have a democratic decisions and if we want to have a democratic system, how can we do it? And he said, like, one of the most obvious things is you just meet. I mean, if you're a smaller group of people, you sit together, discuss, find a solution, write it perhaps down, and execute whatever you have decided on. But if you have a lot of people, I mean, this was in Germany, so like 80 million people, taking decision together, it's just unfeasible. You cannot collect 80 million people in a stadium and have a large discussion in some way, whatever way this should be. So where I wanted to come to is to the point that like it's totally obvious to have representatives and to vote for representatives that kind of represent the whole population, and then is representative for some time and takes all the decisions in a smaller group where decisions are more feasible. But over time, I think it became clear that, like, I mean, already earlier than this, but for me, it became more and more clear that there are some problems with this approach. Like a lot of problems. And I think a lot of people who will listen to this are probably well aware of this. And put it like a little bit straight to the point, I would say it's like psychological biases. That is like our problem we have. Like people are not like rational people. They are not electing like good representatives in a way. I mean, we have a very good example now in the US. And like this is a problem we have to handle, and this simple representation has some problems, and also like the complexity that people are like globally, like you elect them for 4 years, but within those 4 years they have like they take responsibility for all the topics. Like they really have to know everything, and the more complex the world becomes, the more problematic this becomes. So a lot of problems that are well aware, but at the same time, we have like a lot of new technologies coming in. Like we have the internet. It's not like I don't know 100 years ago where people really needed to move physically to another place to discuss or to exchange opinions, or maybe they could have done it with a letter, but this would still be very like inefficient. We can do this more efficient now, and we have a lot of tools available: social media, AI, blockchain, all this stuff. And yeah, the question is from this perspective, at least for me, this question is from this perspective, aren't we perhaps just in the very beginning of the democratic development, or in the development of democracies? Isn't the system we have not like the end of democracies, what we sometimes believe to think when we're coming out of school, like thinking like this is the perfect system and this is how it should be forever, but instead thinking like this is just the beginning. This was just the very first step of developing democracies, and this was like based on what we could do and was feasible to that time. But it's perhaps time to like advance from this point. And I think this is for me what this podcast is about, like starting to bring together all these new perspectives and from people who thought a lot about this already. Yeah,
absolutely. Also, like as I was saying, when I ask myself, am I crazy about thinking about things that do not exist? I mean, we have a democracy, a system that works in a certain way. We elect someone that should represent us. But as you said, not always that person is able to do a good job. And I remember like a professor from contemporary history, and he was talking about representatives, so politicians. And actually in Italy, we have a lot of cases of corruption. Also some politicians that are, you wonder like, who could vote for them? You're like, why? And he was saying that they're not a special case, like that person, that politician that we think is particular ignorant. It's just one person extracted from the population. And also this, this makes things way more complex, because it means that there is also a cultural problem, not just like a political problem. Then everything is political, of course. And I'm thinking that what made me think about technology that could help people in deciding, in discussing, is the fact that if we look at the past, a conflict that is, I don't know, 300 years old or more, could be like religion war in Europe. We are detached from that topic. I mean, maybe we are not religions, maybe we could be Catholic or Protestant, but by the way, we are not so attached, emotionally attached to that conflict, and so we can see it with some in a clear way. We can see that both parties were right in a way. They had their own reasons to say something, and eventually also to fight, and so on. While when there is a conflict in the present, then we are way more attached. We have a lot of emotions attached to that event, and so we are not lucid enough to think in a rational way. And I mean, using the word rational is quite dangerous, because like different kind of logic and rationality exist. And yeah, I thought that technology, could help us, because as you said, in the past we could just send letters, or like using this kind of technology that the end were like streets, and there was the post system. And nowadays maybe we can use technology to decide in a more horizontal way. We can create different kind of system. We can create money that expire eventually. We can create different kind of money. One money when you are paid, one money when you have to pay someone. I don't know, like a lot of possibilities. And I think that this podcast could be a space where to discover these things, interview maybe researchers that are exploring new kind of monetary system, new kind of decision-making system, new kind of also way of living. Why not? I mean, we are used to see towns in a certain way. I mean, the towns that we know now. But what about the future? Like I've also seen. I mean, in Italy before like the pandemic, no one was talking about smart working, remote working, and now people are still doing it. Maybe a couple of days every week. So I'm thinking about that a person could actually leave their hometown and maybe live outside. And so I think that civic tech, yes, it is technology. It is also participation with technology, but it's also discussing and thinking about the society of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there is an interesting point in this, because like you can go this. I mean, even if we start like from this very societal level in a sense, we can like go down to the very basic conversations you can have just with like one person. I mean, you can have a very tough discussion already with one person that can be very complicated, or can become very complicated, especially when like, I mean, often if you have a conflict and you're in a very like resource rich situation, then it's mostly doable. But especially when like resources went down and you have like really not enough time, not enough, I don't know, money, whatever is missing, and then you have a conflict, then it starts to heat up very quickly. And the only thing that helps like to start these, or to like solve the conflicts, is like a very good communication style, training, a lot of information available and stuff like this. And this is like from like in two dimensions in a way. Like the podcast could like go from the very basic psychological way of solving conflicts up to like the societal level of like scaling up to this high level of solving conflicts. Because I mean, eventually also on the high level, it all bases on discussions on the low level in a sense. And so it's also interesting like to understand or find guests here in this podcast that could help us understanding in a way, like how do these conflicts evolve, how can we solve them on a small level, and how can we solve them on a larger level, and how can we include, especially on larger levels, how can we include like technologies that we have, like AI, I don't know, perhaps blockchain, perhaps, I don't know, scientific insights from collective intelligence, from complex social systems, whatever is around there, or just politics science or economic science, everything basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also thought about, I mean, ask myself, what are my expectations for this podcast? And one could expect that the podcast, I don't know, you became rich because the podcast. But no, I think at the end is to learn something. I mean, we already recorded some episodes, and it was super interesting to talk to the people that I interviewed, and yeah, that is the things I liked more, because everything is about. I mean, this also makes me think about the system we are living in, where we usually learn when we are young, and then we don't have to learn anymore. We know everything, and this is not true. And I think we should. I mean, several times we had also discussion about education, and I mean, this is not so connected with civic tech, but this is the cool thing about civic tech, that is connected with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. With everything that is like concerned with the society. Yeah, absolutely. And as a like also like from what I said, like if we're talking about society, it of course includes also the individual and how the individual works. Yeah, and I think there's another interesting point in what you said, because it brings us back also to this point where you said that there's sometimes this feeling of like feeling a little bit crazy of what we're doing, like engaging for like new democratic development, but actually no one has asked for it. I mean, everyone is just asking for, we need to like stay strong in our democratic approach in principle, whatever this means, but there's not much around like that politicians are saying like we need a new way of thinking democracy. This simply does not happen. So no one is asking for reinventing democracy in a sense. So that's why it feels a little bit crazy, like investing significant amount of time, often like in our case, but also in the case of many other people with like very few or perhaps even no funding at all available, thinking about these things. And I think actually this is also an interesting thing of this podcast. What is also kind of my expectation actually is that like when we hear to more voices in this like space of people who are thinking about things, maybe over time it feels a little bit more common, like hearing to someone who has worked in this space for like 5-10 years, perhaps maybe in a small niche, and another one in a small niche working on this for 3 years, and another one in like one perhaps in more technological niche, the other one maybe in a little bit more, I don't know, sociological niche, whatever. But then hearing all these voices together after some time, I think there will stay the impression of, I mean, we're not alone. I mean, there are a lot of people thinking about this, a lot of people innovating things in this direction. And I think this will help us also to not feel so crazy anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And this is could be the main reason why we are doing this, to not feel alone.
Yes.
In a way. And
but there are then also like of course some I just added in now some practical things in terms of expectations, like just to get inspired, of course, by some others. So I mean, I had the lucky chance to hear to the first recordings you have done so far, and for me it was very interesting to hear those voices. I had actually much more than I have expected, and really like people, and also like what was also a little bit surprising for me, it's not like just like people are like coming up for like, I don't know, they've just started half a year ago and it's like just a hype thing and then they leave again. But there are some people who are really like years of the time investing and thinking in this direction, and this really feels like there's something going on and there's a chance to develop things. And also like on the technological side, I mean, this is something where this podcast will probably evolve a lot in the future, but also like in introducing all the technological developments, because like when we talk about AI, we're talking about the risks, we're talking about how it can change industry. Maybe we talk about how it can harm social media, how it can harm society, but not so much the opportunities. And perhaps we can put some more effort or some more perspective on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also about you remember when we first met around 1 year ago, and we also talked to other people that were working on similar projects, and I realized that we also had some similar mental processes. Like we were stuck all in the same point. We were motivated by something quite similar. I don't know. We studied 2 different things. Could be psychology, physics, history, computer science, and there were all these common things between these individuals that came from all over the world, but with kind of similar attitude to do something that, as you said, no one required for. Like no one asked for a new kind of democracy, more horizontal and different from the one we have. And I think it would be interesting, like to say something about us, like who we are.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Shall I start, or would you like? Yeah,
Sure.
I can. Okay, yeah. So a little bit to my background. So Actually, I have a quite long kind of, I would say, academic background. So let's start a little bit earlier, perhaps. So after school, I was one of the last years where like the military service was mandatory in Germany, and in Germany it was at that time possible to do like a social year somehow, a voluntary social year as replacement for this military service, where I decided for, and I was like always interested in understanding like how the humans work in a way, but also in how the world works in a way. But the humans were a little bit more in my focus. And then I decided to do this voluntary social year in a like addiction therapy institution, like therapy institution for drug addicted people, for a year. And this was quite interesting. And I stuck with this idea. Like within this year, I like strongly decided that I would like to study psychology. But I also, and that was quite interesting development for me, decided to definitively not willing to be to do therapy, because I always had the feeling like, you know, if you're working with drug addicted people, you realize at some point that all these problems that happen in their life, and these were like adults, are like the problems occurred already in their childhood or latest in their youth. So if you look at their like life history, you realize, okay, there's a clear reason why they ended up there where they are now. And I always felt like it's good that we have therapists. It's very important to have therapists, no question. But for me as an individual, I always felt like I'm too late. You know, I don't want to like help people at a stage where you cannot really help anymore. You can just make it a little bit more comfortable, but perhaps you can also help a little bit. But for me, it always felt like I'm too late. And then I was always thinking, okay, how, like, where is the excess? And actually, I mean, you mentioned this already at some point before. Actually, I thought I would like to improve education, like the educational system, because I thought this is like where, like, as a society, you can have most access and like improving the abilities and skills of people. But over time, this changed. Anyhow, I still decided to start psychology, which was a good choice, I think. But within the first year, I realized like it's somehow not methodology. No, the methodology was not like resonated not enough with me. So psychology is in social science already a quite like statistical method, like field. But it was still not enough. And I felt always like I need more like hard skills in a sense. And then I started to also studying physics. And at the same time, around this time, I also developed this Democracy project I'm working on, like how like decision-making could be scaled. And then like I did somehow everything at the same time. I was also working as a freelancer at that time for web development to like fund my studies. And after around 5 years, I was able to like finish both, like a bachelor in psychology and a bachelor in physics. And also the Democracy project was like going on, and like I developed my web development skills. But I wanted to go a little bit deeper into the like methodology. Yeah, the methods part. I saw at that time that like I had different things, of course, in my mind. It was never that clear, but at that time I had the feeling like that perhaps science is the way I would like to go. And if I would go to the way of science, then like statistics is what you need, because this is like kind of the language of science. I mean, it's not only the language of science. If you want to understand how things like work in the nature, it's always good to have statistics available, because it gives you a little bit like certainty about what correlates and what doesn't correlate, in a way, like helps a little bit to overcome psychological biases in a way. And that was a very good choice, I think, because I was not only learning a lot about statistics in general, it also helped me to like get a solid math understanding, because even though I studied physics in my bachelor, I think in my physics bachelor, I was not able to really grasp the essence of math, so of mathematics. But this came then on in this statistics master. And I also got first insights into machine learning. And this was also quite interesting and very unexpected, because I had not thought about machine learning at the time. But that was the time around, I think it was 2015, 2016, 2017, somewhat around, where like deep learning started to come up. And it was for me quite interesting time in like digging into this. And I learned Python. I learned like building very simple neural networks. And then during my master's, I realized there is something interesting, like an interesting field called computational neuroscience. I was never hearing from this before, but at the time I was like, it was the first time that I heard of it. And in this field, I thought I found an opportunity in a way, because I thought, okay, this is perhaps like the best chance to understand like human nature in a way, because you're going down to the neurons, simulating them on your computer, and can check if it works or if it doesn't work. You know, you have a really good like check in a way, and you get inspirations from biology, so from like experimental neuroscience. And you get results from your computer simulations, and you can always compare it. In the end, it turned out that I was, during that time, always not so sure if it was really a good choice. I was like probably every PhD is struggling a lot during PhD time, if it's really a good thing to continue with it or to just drop it. Eventually, I made it and I finished it, but I'm still today not sure if it really like was a good benefit for me, or if it would have been better to like start something else earlier. But I don't know. For sure I gained a lot of insights that are valuable in any way. Yeah. So in any case, and after that I moved to Sweden with my family. There was just like about 1 to 2 years, just pure survival. There was not much going on in my life otherwise than just trying to handle my 2 kids and like renovating the house and trying to kind of survive the situation. And it was just last year that I started to think about like, okay, what next, in a sense, you know, what do I want to take a job? I mean, with a PhD in this field, you have good job opportunities, but it also means you have to work full time and not much time at home. Or would you like to focus on freelancing, or would you, like to be the crazy guy that tries to help improving democracy? And I somehow decided mostly for the latter. And I activated some, like I tried to go back a little bit into science, but this time from totally another direction, like a little bit more from the direction of applied IT design processes, like collective intelligence perspective, which is still like somehow connected, but very different in a sense. I made good contacts with professors who started to support me a little bit, but still without funding, and still freelancing to keep me surviving, with the hope that this sometimes plays out. Also looking a little bit into like entrepreneurship, like I'm now part of a company and perhaps founding another one this year. Let's see. But this is where I'm now, and I'm kind of just starting. And actually, when I met you with this idea of having the podcast, for me it was quite clear that this is kind of an opportunity. Not only because you're like I always thought you're like the perfect person of like interviewing people in this topic, but also like because it could bring me into a position of talking a little bit of what I'm thinking, could like benefit my project a little bit, even if it's just indirectly, but still. And and also like bring this, as we said before in our expectations part, in a sense, like bring this whole topic forward in a sense, and making it a little bit more public, and also like get insights from other people, making connections, collaborations. I mean, and this is not something that is only for me a benefit or for you. This is hopefully also a benefit for all the other people, like for all the other listeners, but also for the guests who maybe realize that there's someone else around doing the same thing for 5 years and they were just not aware of it, perhaps. This is was probably a little bit long, but
no, thank you for the kind words. I was thinking that in this particular field, maybe I already said it other times, but like when you find someone that is doing the same in another field, you have that person is a competitor. Well, here a person is a collaborator. And right. Also with another friend that you also know, we were joking about, okay, someone want to steal our work. Do it, please.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I also always saying. So, like I met some people who said that, yeah, like with your project, aren't you afraid that someone just copies your code when you do everything open source and you like document everything and everyone can understand what you're doing? And I'm like, no, I mean, I would be happy if people would do it. Like,
Yeah, please,
yeah.
please do it. I want to
Yes,
read novels. I want to just walk in the
yeah, of
nature.
course, yeah,
Yeah, this is something very exciting because I see that all these, yeah, all the people that I met, like, they really believe that something can be changed. And so, yeah, what benefit me or you also benefit someone else. And also, this is something specific about technology, I would say, where if I write a program, then you can use the same program and another person too. You don't have to write it 3 times. And many times I thought, what is like in the real world, ideas work like this. They are the only things that are replicable without losing the original, I would say. Maybe
right.
fire in some way.
Mm. Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, it
And
is. It doesn't cost any additional resources to share it in a way. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah. 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 But before we start like drifting in another direction, what about you? So your background and yeah.
so my background is quite mixed and confused, I would say. Um, because I mean, I can say that I started with some scientific studies in high school. But back then, I also really liked literature. I mean, I was reading a lot of novels, but on my side, not for school. And I never liked literature when I was studying it at school. And I remember I was not motivated. So at a certain time, I left high school. I was I mean, we have 5 years of high school in Italy. I was at the third year, and they, how do you say, when they, uh, I mean, you have to repeat 1 year basically. So, but really, I was not motivated. For me, I had the impression I was not learning, that everything was a sort of kind of exercise, but not really something useful. And so I went to this evening school about computer science, and I also started working as a help desk, system administrator help desk, and I also left the evening school. So I was without any diploma, and I worked there for almost 5 years. Then I remember, like, one day I thought, okay, I'm wasting my life. I mean, there was also my boss. I think I was 23, 24, I don't remember. And my boss was around 40. And he told me, oh, I was your age when I came here. And so I thought, okay, it's the moment I have to quit. Otherwise, I will wake up one day in a place that, I mean, it's not something that I choose. It just happened. So I went, no, I actually left that place, and I started writing, and at the same time also sewing backpacks. I had this thing, like, I actually wanted a backpack, but they were quite expensive. So I found a community, a forum, where people were sewing their backpacks, and also some of them they were selling. And what I thought is, okay, they are sewing a backpack. If they can do it, I also can do it. I mean, and at the end, I spent much more. Like, I spent a lot comparing. I could have bought a very nice backpack, but maybe I would not have had the experience. And then I went back to high school, the same evening high school, and I had to do 2 years. So in the same chair that during the morning are used by normal students. For 2 years I went there. It was quite interesting. I also met some interesting people. And it was also very, very interesting for me because it is different. When you're a kid, you're just there because you have to. When you're a bit older, you understand things a little bit better. And also it was a little bit different because when I went there for the first time, there was the how is called where you write the
Blackboard or
exactly, the blackboard. And when I went there for the second time, there was a touch screen. So it was also very different in a technological advance. And I got my diploma, but then I thought, okay, I don't want to work in the IT. I saw that all my friends that were working in the IT, they were working for some big company, for a bank or something like this. Well, I was very... back then I was working on a prototype of a back panel because I have back pain. I had back pain also when I was studying. I have back pain when I sit down. So that's why I thought, okay, maybe a back panel could help me. And I released it as open hardware, open source. I don't know if someone has built it. I don't know. But still is a project I think in the future will be interesting. I don't know, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, I will go back to work on it. And I decided to study history. It's something that, I think that every one of us is interested by what happened in the past, but not every one of us is interested in studying history. So I was interested in the past, but I never had the time to sit down, schematize everything, to make the timeline, to remember, do the connections. And so, I did it for 3 years and 3.5 years. I studied in Milan. And then now and then later I decided to do a master in global history that I'm still doing right now in Bologna. And I thought that, it's like I changed my path completely, like from computer science to history. And I remember there were also some professor that told me, but Ale, you were good in computer science. Why are you crazy? And but still, I'm convinced that was the right thing to do. Because at the end, also my thesis during my bachelor in history was about blockchain. And my master thesis that I still have to write will be probably about civic participation and the things we are discussing. And also, about expectation. I expect that this podcast will be helpful for my thesis. and I'm sure it will be. And then what about me? I like the blue collar. I like to read novels. No.
Yeah. This gives already a good impression, actually. Yeah, it's interesting. I like this, I like this combination of like history and technology. I think this is probably not very common. Actually, I experienced something very similar. Like when I studied psychology and then started like a second subject in physics, it was also like many people were, I mean, me too, of course, were confused of like, this is like very different. I mean, it's not too uncommon that people study two things, but then it's normally very related to each other. But like physics and psychology are, I mean, both are more or less natural science, but you know, it's quite far and distant from, and I mean, if you study two things which is quite close to each other, you can always mostly you have like courses that you can use for the other subject. You know, if you want to have a bachelor in this and a bachelor in this, and you can take some courses here and take some courses here, and you can like interchange them in a way and save some time. But if you study physics and psychology, you cannot exchange anything. It's like completely different. And it was also like quite a crazy feeling, because like one day sitting in a psychology lecture and one day sitting in a physics or math lecture, you have totally different people around you, like thinking in totally different ways. Like, I mean, not totally different, but you certainly feel there's a difference. And I could imagine that like the difference between computer science and history is probably similar. Like, you know, you have to deal with completely different perspectives, people, I don't know, setting, I don't know, frame, the whole framework is different in thinking and seeing the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there is also, I don't know if it is particular from Italy, but I think it's particular from the, I mean, people that are studying history, that a lot of time there is a sort of kind of attachment to the past. So sometimes there is like a sort of not denying technology, because I mean, of course, all history students, they have WhatsApp, they use computers and cell phones, but they use it as it is, like if it is part of reality, and so you use it. And yeah, sometimes there is not really like an open mind toward technology, and I think it's a pity. And the university and I mean the academic world in some ways quite responsible of this. I mean, I think they should change something. And yeah, as you say, like not a lot of people studied very different things. By the way, I saw some similarities between, let's say, computer science and history. I mean, computer science is also science of information. I mean, and the information is power. It is power because, I mean, it can be seen in two different ways. Like, let's say a government decide that just some information has to go on newspapers, and so let's say you manipulate people with some kind of information. And then also information is power, because I mean, based on the information you have, you can act in reality. Like, we can now record a podcast, because we know that this tool exists and we know how it works and so on. We know how to put up a website and so on. So I see them as quite interconnected, but just because I had maybe some time to dig in. And I think the same for psychology and physics.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is this brought up an interesting perspective for me, because like, I mean, this is also at least in my perception, like a quite problematic thing of our time, because as you mentioned, like there are so many like technologies available, tools available, knowledge, basically information available. And in my perception, it is really hard like to come up with all of this. And you need to learn more tools, not just to be able to control these tools, but also to be able to like work through all this information that exists in our very, very complex world right now. And I really think that this is also very important part of the problem of our modern democracies, in a way that there's so much information available, and it is so hard to come up with like filtering this information. And like finding the good information in it. I think I recently heard in a podcast, I forgot with who it was, but it was like he stated that like getting information is not a problem. You know, you can get information very quickly, very much, no issue at all. The problem is getting high quality information. This is what is hard. Like distinguishing like the few information pieces that are really relevant between this ocean of information pieces which are not really relevant. And I think this is something which is so hard in our times, and also so hard for democracies, because it's so easy to like bring people in directions where like your whole perception of the whole world starts to be different from what it really is actually. And it is so hard to like extract the relevant information in the sense of what really is actually. Yeah, and this is also something where I think like the traditional democratic systems are not functioning actually anymore, because they are not designed to like tackle this problem. And yeah, this is where we definitely need new approaches. So it's just like your perspective just brought me back actually to this democracy thing.
Yeah, democracy. No, it is super important actually, because sometimes we think that democracy. Democracy is just a word, of course, but yeah, sometimes we think. We are not used to see violence in our world. We see violence every day, but a different kind of violence compared to the one that maybe people in the past have seen. I've never seen a civil war on the street. I have never had bombs on my head, on my house, and I'm very lucky. And but yeah, I think that sometimes we forget that all this democracy, and at the end we are talking about it is so easy when there is a conflict. We first disagree about something, and then suddenly we start killing each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is like this. Yes. It's as I said in the beginning, it's already very hard on a personal level, but it's even harder if you have like groups of people and like group dynamics coming into. I think also like there was another I think it's there's this British economist who was like a trader before at this bank in Citibank, I think. I forgot his name, but he was also mentioning that like we should see it more like this, that like the unstable situation, I think it was from him, that like unstable and unequal situation in societies is much more common than a stable situation and an equal situation. So like when we grew up in like the 90s, let's say 90s, early 2000s, it was very common. The perspective was always like, there is like democracy is on the rise. This is the way to go. This is where eventually every country will come up. Every country will live in wealth, and every single people will be wealthy in the end. So this is like the story that society was telling us in a way. But the actual story is like, if you go back in time, it was like most of the time like inequality, killing, some peoples with much more power and money than others, and it was like, we have to be careful that it's not just like that. We not just like after World War II had a small phase of perhaps 50 years where everything was wealthy and equal in a sense, at least sufficiently, and that things turn around back not to like, and I mean not only to an undesirable state, but to a more stable, unequal state, like in a sense that perhaps inequality is a more stable state than equality is. And we have to be careful, because keeping like equality costs a lot of effort all the time. Like, you know, you keep the fire running in a way. If you're not doing something, it just goes off and that's it. And I think this is also a perspective that is, for me at least, quite new, because like I grew up in a world where until perhaps some few years ago, everything was still in this perspective of like everything becomes just better every year. There's no way back in a way, but there's no guarantee that it will be this way. Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's in a way it's a sort of kind of religious attitude, like to think that it's gonna be different, like in the future, and I mean all kind of ideologies in a way, but also like I have faith that technology could help us to build a better world, but still it's faith. I'm not sure about it. I mean, I'm quite sure, but still I have to consider that is.
Yeah, I'm actually very sure, but only if it's like done in a good way. One remark, perhaps, I just found that Gary Stevenson was the name of the guy who's dealing a lot with inequality at the moment. Anyway, so the point was sorry.
No, I thought you were stuck there.
Yeah. But, bring me back to the topic. I was my part of bringing in Gary was like confusing me. Bring me back to the topic.
Well, I also forgot.
Both.
Well, we have to say that we are not so used to do podcast.
I remember. I remember it was that technology will definitively help, and and I think it will, because like from a very like abstract perspective, this is a little bit like a perspective that I gained from like my studies in a way, is like our world is very high dimensional, very, 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 very high dimensional in a sense. I mean, not in dimensions, in spatial dimensions, but in general, in a lot of dimensions. Like these informations are nested in a lot of dimensions. But we can imagine, our brain can only imagine like up to 3 spatial dimensions. So our vision, what we can imagine, is like stops after 3 dimensions, and this makes a big problem in a sense, because very complicated or even complex things we cannot really grasp them, because we can only see them in a line and like small drawing on 2 dimensions, or maximum in 3 dimensions. So what we actually do when we do science, or when we think, or when we observe, is like bring this high dimensional information space into like 2 or maximum 3 dimensions. And this, of course, is always wrong, very, very wrong. So we need to be very careful to like get the correct perspective on these 2-3 dimensions to make as least error as possible in a sense. And I think the opportunity of technology is to help us doing this dimensional reduction in a very good way. So this is definitely, so I'm 100% sure actually that this is the opportunity. But the danger is that we like, and I'm not sure, I mean, this is probably your point in a sense. The danger is that we use it in the wrong way, because what I said only holds if we use it in the right way. If we use it as an assistant, like perhaps I'm spoiling a little bit, but in the first episodes, I think there's a common sense between the guests that technology should, at least in society and democratic processes, only be an assistant and never like take over the process. And completely, but I certainly see some danger that this could happen, like that someone says, okay, let's build an AI that actually is doing this decisions for us. It will be better than what we do in whatever way, or that we, I don't know, whatever system we develop, and like just leave it to the system because we're lazy, often humans, like we are very lazy, so it's very easy to do it, and then I think it can become a danger. But as long as we use it as an assistant that helps us to like reduce the information space to like what we can understand, and to like make use of the information we have and extract the useful information, I think it will benefit definitively.
Absolutely. The things about multi-dimensional spaces is super interesting, and I'm thinking that this AI that could organize all society by itself, I think this is the most dangerous thing, because I'm sure someone will propose to use that system in the future. As you said, no one asked us to rethink democracy. But democracy, as we see it now, is also a structure of power. And so, like, I see it functional for the people who have power now to have an AI system that does everything by itself without any needs to explain the choices that the AI will suggest. And in a way, I think this is quite similar to how some technical political decisions were taken also in the previous years. I mean, I'm thinking about economy. Like, most of the people do not understand anything about economy. Also, like, I do not understand, honestly, why we spend so much money on some stuff and not on health and not on education that is super important. So I cannot understand this. But there are people that have a lot of economic knowledge and technical knowledge that say, no, we have to spend, I don't know, could be for weapons, could be for private company, for many things. And it's quite hard right now to debate about if it's right or not. And I'm thinking that if eventually, if there will be an AI that decide for everyone, then it's not going to be possible to oppose, because we are not smarter than an AI. I mean, we are smarter, but in a different way. And so I think that is also the reason why I thought that it is so important to take care of this. I mean, to talk about possible governance system that are not a black box, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to add here some point is, like, if an AI would take over the democratic decision making process, it would basically bring the power to those who decide what kind of data is used to train the AI, because, like, the data that is used to train the AI decides eventually what the AI will do, in a sense. And I think it's basically just a shift of power, not like a change of power, in a sense. There will be some company, organization, whatever, that has, like, the power of training this AI, and those are the ones who have the power of maybe not deciding, but at least influencing in which way decisions will come out. And even if this organization that is behind has good intentions, it's still from perspective of the process a questionable thing if we really would, like, have that way. And I think in principle this points out a very deep problem, actually. I think because I think the problem is to develop a democracy, and I think this is the stage where we are right now, to develop a democracy which bring out kind of collectively intelligent results without sacrificing the opportunity from everyone to take part. Because you can easily build a technocracy, where you have some experts, however you decide on these experts, but you have some experts deciding on what is best to do. I bet that probably if, like, a group of scientists would sit together for every, like, topic and would decide on that, like, independent from company decisions, independent from other irrational processes, biases, whatever, would focus on finding a good solution. It would not be the best ever, but it would be much better than what we have now. But it would ask the question of legitimacy, like who is the one deciding who the experts are, in a way. But in principle, this is what we need. So we need some way of system that allows us to have, like, more intelligent collective decisions without sacrificing the democratic part in it. And I think this is the challenge we have to face. And this is where we may use technology for. Maybe, I mean, when I said technology, I always also include science in a way that, when we talk about technology, we always only think on like computers or industry or stuff like this, like more or less physical things. But when I say this, I also mean like insights about like us humans in a way. If neuroscience makes progress, if the understanding of our brain makes progress, this also helps a lot. Or if science in direction of complex social systems make progress, this helps a lot of designing new systems, because we better know how we interact. Like for example, game theory. This brings a lot of insights about how humans interact under certain conditions, and this helps to design systems where you can bring out the best for everyone in a way.
Yeah, I'm thinking about you mentioned like now complex social system. And that could be also a sort of maybe description of the podcast, because actually the idea behind the podcast is to interview people that have knowledge about certain topics. I mean, they could be professor, there could be researcher, there could be politician, journalist. Independent scholars, I don't know, that studied something specific and that can tell us the product of the research, or we could discuss with them about possibilities. And I mean, this also creates a sort of network between the people. And I mean, it was before the podcast, when we were just chatting, that I was saying that I had the impression that at the end, I mean, there are people inside this field, but not so many. So they all know each other. After a certain time, after that you work for 5 years on the same project, they all know you, and they all know your project. And yeah, maybe it's a complex social system that will try to rethink democracy. And as you said, maybe this is not the end of democracy. Maybe this is just the beginning of a new kind of democracy, but more horizontal, where everyone can have more possibilities, not where everyone is not so tied by their social origins also. So something more equal for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, bringing out like kind of better results, like better in, I mean, it's hard to define better, but I would say better in the sense that if you include a lot of people in the process, it should be like the result should come out in like a reasonable time, in a sense. You can have, like, with 100 people, a consensus-based discussion with a very good result in the end, but it will take so much time that you're perhaps willing to sacrifice a little bit of the result. Perhaps the result is even better with another system, to gain like 100 times faster process in a way. But it has. We have to find a sweet point in that sense. We don't want to sacrifice too much of the result, of the quality of the result, and we don't want to sacrifice too much of the efficiency, of the speed of the process. But like, actually, in my perception, the current democratic systems are like the kind of both is not fulfilled. It's not that fast, not that good results, not that efficient. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, we can be happy that we have it, but I think there's a lot of like room for improvement. I think, at least I feel so.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a sort of MVP, a little bit buggy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That you say, okay, nice project, okay, it works, but yeah, please work more on it.
Yeah, right. We can see you're heading in the right direction. Please come back a little bit later when it's a little bit more mature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think this is the um, yeah, like investigating about possibilities, like not just with people that are super pros about new digital governance systems. It's also nice to hear some critical voice sometime. Also, I mean, because there is a lot of um, as you said, if we use technology in a good way, we can change the world or the system in a good way. But it is so easy to do something wrong. So I really think that this has to be like something like really a collective process, a complex social collective system process. I don't know. Also, I'm thinking about that in the future, but this will open another chapter. I mean, maybe constitutions will be written in a different way. I'm thinking about smart contracts. So not just with phrases and articles, but like in a very precise and mathematical way. And also this allows to write that contract, that constitution in a collective way. And I'm thinking about that more minds, more people are participating that in this process, um, and then the outcome will be proportional to the effort put.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this really opens up a new part. Perhaps we should not extend too much on this because we are already like much
Yeah.
later. Like this is much longer than we have expected. Anyhow, I have to put something in here. So I think this relates a little bit to this phrase "code is law," which is especially relevant in like this blockchain Web3 community, where like if you write a smart contract, it somehow defines how people behave. I'm still very impressed. Like for example, if you look at the Ethereum staking mechanism, or also from other projects, the staking mechanisms, this is like really in my perception, this is like already a very well developed collective intelligence mechanism in a way, because like it counterbalances. I don't know if it's intelligence in that way, but it's like a social algorithm. That's perhaps a better word. Like, you know, it counterbalances so many interests. I mean, Bitcoin was probably the first one, but now it's on a completely different level. It counterbalances all interests in a way that like the whole group benefits from it. And I find this super interesting, and I think there's a lot of more potential in the future. Yeah, and I think it also has the potential to like bring code into law in some way. But this, of course, is then like brings up the question like who's deciding about the code, of course. But as you mentioned, this is then the question, like we would then be required to collaboratively write code. This is then the core of the decisions in a sense. So we have to find ways to code together in a way to indirectly define our laws that we that we use.
Yeah, but I'm quite optimistic. I mean, many times I thought about the way people in computer science are collaborating, and they are doing it in a very quick way. I'm thinking also about people that are just developing a product. I don't know, like could be Microsoft, could be Google. I mean, they're very efficient in collaborating. And many times I thought, okay, what if we apply this to politics? Like, what if people that study something else, could be philosophy, anthropology, psychology, if they use the same way, the same technology? And so it is a collaborative process. And one thing that I mean, I think it will happen in a natural way, but like to include as much as different point of view, like different point of view would help the collective process to grow. And I'm thinking also that this is in a way a male world, the one about technology. Maybe now there is, of course, some interest also from, I mean, there are a lot of women that did very interesting projects that, I mean, that did a lot. But still, like when I was looking for guests to interview, I saw that this is something where more males are active. And yeah, it just a thought that I had, because and yeah, also about some readings that I was doing, and also if we look at the past, like most of the wars were made by males, most of the power was held by men, yeah, males, and so like if we are thinking or building a new world for everyone, I mean, there has to be different skills, but also different point of views, and the different point of views are also given by the experience that we have living in the body we have. So I think this is also important, and
Yeah, and I think that there lies also like the question of like power again in it, because like, for example, if like you would write like code that is law in a sense, for example, in blockchain systems, it really like asks the question, who is capable or who has the power of like taking part in this. I mean, this is something that, for example, Primavera de Filippi, I've interestingly, I have a book here lying around. I wanted to start reading it soon. Hopefully I have some time soon. Or also like Bruce Schneier, for example, who are like warning, I mean, Bruce Schneier a little bit more intense than Primavera de Filippi, but in principle, warning like and saying, okay, like if we write like law in code in a sense, we need to be careful of who is like doing it actually, and like who's governing this in a way. And if it's only like a few, let's say, male programmers that have the power to take part because those are the only ones understanding like how to code smart contracts, for example, then you have again like a small group of people who can decide on how like code is coming into existence, and probably much more complex power structures, especially in the blockchain world. You know, like some people have a lot more tokens or coins than others and have more power in deciding what comes in and what is not coming in and so on. So this is also a very complicated topic. Eventually, I think it's like this: before we like should start implementing democracy in blockchains, we should make sure that like the participation process is like at least sufficiently equal in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see the potential like to not stop these episodes. Like we could talk for another 3 hours.
Probably. Yeah, but we can take this as a chance let's say it this way. I mean, this is anyhow an idea we had. Like we just reschedule it. So perhaps we stop here and we just continue, I don't know, in some time again. Because there was anyhow this idea of like having some reflections on some episodes, and I really think there are in the upcoming episodes there are some very interesting things that we could discuss and that could influence our discussion. Yeah, let's stop here. Perhaps I quickly just wanted to drop like if people are already listening to this, I would ask them to subscribe. And if they are listening on YouTube, I would ask them to like, to subscribe, and to ring the notification bell, of course.
Okay.
I quickly wanted to motivate this. And with this, I think we can close, right?
Yeah, thank you, because I'm not really good at asking to maps and so on. So thank you a lot.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, absolutely. Like we also, if someone is listening, like we had some ideas about also some, let's call them live discussion that maybe we can comment the episodes of the podcast, or maybe we can comment some other topic, or like invite a guest. We can brainstorm all together about gamification or some other kind of topics. And
Right.
and yeah, I would say that this could benefit everyone. I mean, the people that listen to the podcast itself, as the people that are working in civic tech, the people that are struggling to raise money, I don't know, for their project, and so on. Like, let's collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Perhaps one thing that just comes in my mind, to like the listeners to just understand the roles, because they may ask during this episode. So like Alessandro will be the one like asking the questions and doing the interviews, and I would occasionally be here for discussions and things like we did now. Yeah, just to have this clarified, that people are not confused when like for the next few episodes they are not seeing my face again.
Yeah, we have a sort of front end, back end system, but it can change and adapt on the way.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you, and
Thank you too. Bye bye.
bye bye.